Good morning to all. This is Dr. Jayashree, Principal of Soundarya Law College, Bangalore. I am dealing with the subject labor law, and in labor law we have many enactments. One of the enactment is Trade Union Act of 1926. The another act is Industrial Dispute Act of 1947. Then Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act of 1947, then Payment of Wages Act, Minimum Wages Act, and the Workmen Compensation Act of 1923, wherein now it is named as Employees Compensation Act. And today this is under the first unit, which is called, the act is Trade Union Act of 1926. So, dear students, under Trade Union Act you need to read some of the important sections, wherein first you should know what is the meaning of trade union, then what is the meaning of trade dispute, which is similar to the industrial dispute, then who shall apply for the registration of the trade union and who has to register the trade union, and what is the process for, or what is the procedure for registration of the trade union, and are there any duties, powers and duties of the registrar before he registers the trade union, and once if he is satisfied, then he can certify the registration, that is he can certify and issue the certificate of registration. And once it is registered, what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages, and also what is general fund and political fund, and what are the objects for which the general fund shall be spent, and for what purpose the political fund shall also be spent, and what are the immunities available for the registered trade union. So, along with this, once the registrar registers the trade union, whether the registrar is having a power to cancel or withdraw the registration of the trade union. So, these are some of the topics which you need to read under the Trade Union Act of 1926. Now, let us start with the definition of the trade union. What is the meaning of trade union? Trade union means any combination or any association formed primarily for the purpose of regulating the relationship between the employer and the employees, or between the workman and workmen, or between the employers and the employers. For what the trade union is formed? It is formed for the purpose of imposing restrictive conditions on the conduct of trade or business, and it also includes the federation of two or more trade unions. But this definition of trade union does not effect for an agreement which is entered for the sale of goodwill, and also it does not effect an agreement between the agent and the principals to run between the partners to run the partnership firm. So, now overall the definition of the trade union is, it is an association formed by few members, and it is formed for the purpose of imposing restrictive conditions on the trade or business. By whom? Between those three categories, that is employer and workman, or between employer and employer, or between workman and workman. So, if you see this definition, some of the cases are, that is with regard to, one of the case is Registrar of Trade Union versus Mihir Kumar Goha, wherein some of the members who are working in the ESI corporation, they formed the trade union and they applied for registration to the registrar, wherein the registrar initially he registered, later on cancelled the registration of the trade union. So, now the ESI members, that is the persons, they filed a case to the court, wherein the court held that ESI corporations, they can also form the trade union. Like that, Tirupati Tirumala Devasthana, the persons who are working, the workers who are working there can also form a trade union. Like that, even the persons who are employed in Provident Fund organization, they can also form a trade union. So, there are n number of cases wherein you need to see under the definition of a trade union. Now, next one is who can or who shall, or is there any minimum number of persons who can apply for registration of the trade union? Yes, under Trade Union Act, under section 3, any 7 or more members or any 7 or more workers who are working in an industry shall file an application to the registrar for registration of the trade union. And along with the application, in the application there are some information, there are some contents where it has to be enclosed. So, first one is the name and address of the workers of the trade union, then the head office of the trade union, then the office bearers of the trade union, then their address, everything has to be mentioned in the application. So, along with the application, they have to attach the rules of the trade union. Rules of the trade union is stated in section 6 of the Trade Union Act. What are those rules? The rules are, first one is what is the object for which the trade union is formed. Second one, what is the name of the trade union. And some of the other rules are, one, is there any minimum subscription that has to be taken by the workers, or when the trade union shall be ceased, when it shall come to an end, or once the trade union is formed, can the members amend, rescind the rules of the trade union, and when the trade union shall be dissolved, or are they getting any benefits like insurance, all those benefits, policies have to be stated in the rules of the trade union. So, now along with the application of the trade union plus the rules of the trade union has to be annexed and has to be submitted before the registrar. So, now the application is before the registrar. Registrar, now what are the duties of the registrar? Till now we have seen what is the procedure for registration of the trade union by the members of the trade union, that is by the workers who are working in an industry. So, now the application along with the rules of the trade union is before the registrar now. So, now what are the duties of the registrar? So, now registrar goes through the application and the rules of the trade union. In case if he feels that he has certain doubts with regard to the application which is submitted to him, or he has some doubts with regard to the rules of the trade union. So, he has the power to clarify those doubts, or he may ask for further information before registering the trade union. For example, in case if the name of the trade union which is proposed in the rules of the trade union, if it is identical or if it is similar with the other name of the trade union wherein it is already existing, then he may ask the members to change the name of the trade union. Or in case in the application if the address of the member of the trade union is not filled, or in case if he feels that no, this name of the trade union is not correct, then he may ask the members to change, to alter the name of the trade union. So, once he satisfies all, then he has the power and it is his duty to register the trade union. And the question is there any time limit for him to register the trade union? Now, as per the amendment of the Trade Union Act, he has to register the trade union within 60 days from the date of submission of application to the registrar. That is, time limit is 60 days. Now, once the registrar registers the trade union, he has to enter the name of that trade union into his register, which is maintained by him. And after he entering the name of the trade union into his register, he has to issue the certificate of registration to the employer, that is to the employer of the trade union. And also the registrar, he is also empowered to, once he issues the certificate of registration, is it final? Now all the provisions of the act are complied, his doubts are cleared, all he has clarified, he has got all the clarification from the members of the trade union and he has registered now. Now next question, after issuing the certificate of registration, does he has the power to withdraw or cancel the registration of the trade union? The answer is yes. He has the power to cancel or withdraw the registration of the trade union. Then under what circumstances, under what instances, or under what circumstances he can withdraw? So first one is, that is section 10 of the Trade Union Act speaks about cancellation of registration of the trade union. So first instance is, if the trade union itself has submitted its application to the registrar for dissolution of the trade union, means the trade union members, they do not want to continue the trade union. Second one, in case if the registrar is satisfied that the certificate has been obtained by way of a fraud or by mistake, or in case if the registrar comes to the conclusion that the members of the registered trade union has willfully disobeyed the provisions of the trade union, or last one, if the trade union has ceased to exist. So under these circumstances, the registrar can cancel the registration of the trade union, but provided there is a condition. What is that condition? He has to give 2 months prior notice to the registered trade union. So after giving 2 months prior notice, then he has to cancel the registration of the trade union. But in case, in the rules of the trade union, if it is stated that yes, after 1 year or after 2 years, if it has to be dissolved, after the completion of 2 years, it ceased to be, the trade union shall be ceased. So under such circumstances, he need not give the notice to the members of the registered trade union. So now after registering the trade union, there are certain advantages. What are those advantages? First of all, registration is not compulsory, but if registered, there are certain advantages to the trade union. What are those advantages? First one is, it becomes a body corporate, that is, it is a juristic person. Second one, it gets a perpetual succession, it gets a common seal, then it can enter into a contract, then it gets a legal entity, it can purchase both movable as well as immovable property, and also it can sue and be sued in the name of that trade union, and it can enter into the contracts. So these are some of the advantages in case if the trade union is registered. And the last one is, it has certain immunities also. If it is registered, it is immune from the criminal conspiracy and also from the civil suits. So, that we shall see it later, what are the immunities available for the registration of the trade union, registered trade union. But if it is registered, these are some of the advantages, that is a body corporate, legal entity, perpetual succession, common seal, it can enter into contract, purchase both movable, immovable property, it can sue and be sued, and it gets some immunities. So, these are the advantages of the registered trade union. Now, coming to the general fund and the political fund. So, you may ask me a question, how this general fund is collected? This general fund is stated under section 15 of the Trade Union Act of 1926. This general fund is constituted by way of donations or the deposit which has kept in the bank, the interest which they get shall also be accumulated in the general funds, or in case if the programs or functions are organized, the amount that they get can also be kept in this general fund. So, donations from outsiders, then the membership fee and the deduction which has been done from each employees from their salary, that also shall be accumulated in the general fund. So, now the question is, then why this general fund? For what purpose, for what object this general fund is formed? So, first one is for the payment of salaries of the workmen, then payment of the salaries of the office bearers, then allowances, then to run the administration, for the administration purpose this fund is utilized, then to, in case if any trade dispute exists, in case if the case is pending in the court of law, then the funds shall be taken from the general fund, then to give the compensation shall be given from the general fund, then some of the benefits like insurance policies, everything shall be given from the general fund, and even it is also used for social, religious and for educational purposes of the dependents of the workman, or in case if any members of the family, if they fall sick or if anybody dies, then for funeral purpose, all from the general fund the amount shall be given to the members of the trade union. So, in this general fund is used only for the objects which are legitimate objects stated in section 15. Now, coming to political fund. Political fund is a fund which is used only for political purposes, means to conduct the meetings, to organize the that is to distribute the literatures or to distribute the pamphlets or for election purpose. So, election means the office bearers are elected through the election, the secretary, the president, the treasurers, they are all appointed through elections. So, all those purposes, that is for election, meetings, distribution of literature, pamphlets, for all that political fund shall be used. But one question is, in general fund the employees shall the sum of the amount is deducted from the salary and it is incorporated in this general fund. But here for political purpose you cannot tell that you have to contribute to the political fund. So, the employer cannot compel the employees to contribute to the political fund, whereas for general fund it is already deducted from their salaries. So, general fund should not be used for political fund and political fund should not be used for general fund. So, this is section 15 and political fund is section 16. Now, coming to the last one, that is immunities of the trade union, that is section 17, 18 and 19. Section 17, you know what is the meaning of immunity? Immunity means they are privileged. they are excused, they are immune. So, this immunity is available only for is not registered, then these immunities which I told you, that is section 17, 18 and 19 are not applicable to the not registered trade union. So, now section 17 tells about immunity from criminal conspiracy. What is criminal conspiracy? Under section 120 capital B of Indian Penal Code states that criminal conspiracy means any two or more persons, they enter into an agreement to do an illegal act by illegal means. So, if they do any illegal act by illegal means, then they have committed an offence of criminal conspiracy, wherein they are liable for punishment under section 120 capital B of the Indian Penal Code. So, now applying the same definition which we just saw under IPC, we will apply same definition to section 17 of a Trade Union Act. What is that? No office bearers of the registered, no workman or the office bearers of the registered trade union shall be liable for punishment under section 120 capital B of the Indian Penal Code, provided if they enter into an agreement to do any act. What act? They have entered into an agreement to do the act to fulfill the legitimate demands which are stated in section 15, that is which now we discussed earlier, that is general fund. The general fund shall be spent to the following objectives. So, for that purpose, to fulfill the legitimate demands, then they have entered into an agreement. But when they have entered into an agreement, they are doing it lawfully. They are given for example strike. They want to go for a strike. So, before going on strike, they have to give a strike notice to the employer. Without giving notice, if they go for a strike, then it is an illegal strike. But here they are given a notice and they are going on strike to fulfill the legitimate demands which are stated in section 15. Then they have not committed any offence of criminal conspiracy. But please see that if they have entered into an agreement to commit an offence, then this immunity is not at all applicable. They are liable for punishment under section 120 of the Indian Penal Code. For example, there is a case wherein Gherao, you know what is the meaning of Gherao? Gherao means those who are outside, they are not allowing them to come inside the premises of the factory. Who are inside, they are not allowed to go outside. Whereas the striking workers who are sitting on strike, if they Gherao the persons as well as the vehicles inside and outside the factory premises, then they are liable for punishment under the criminal conspiracy. Now, one more immunity, that is under section 18, that is from civil suits. The office bearers or the registered trade union members are not liable for, if anybody files a civil suit, then they are immune from the civil suits. That is again, if they are fighting for the legitimate object which are stated in section 15, then also they are immune from the civil suits. And last one is enforcement of agreement. Under the Contract Act, you know, an agreement enforceable against the restraint of trade or business is void. But under Trade Union Act, such an agreement in restraint of trade or business is not void, it is a valid one. So, these are the immunities which are available under section 17, 18 and 19 of the Trade Union Act of 1926. So, if you read all these provisions, it is enough under the Trade Union Act. So, with this I conclude this lecture by the provisions which are there under the Trade Union Act. All the best. Thank you one and all.